Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 7. This is One Day Today. We're moving along. We got some amazing guests for a really awesome episode ahead of us. Yeah, we this week has been awesome. We don't plan it this way, but the episodes just keep the people that are just happen to be scheduled for episodes are just connecting dots, and it's been awesome. But I just want to thank you for tuning in with us, and thank our guests who we're about to share. Also introduce our co-host, Matthew. Matthew, what's
Hello,
up,
beautiful
buddy?
beings. How's it going today?
It's going fantastic. It's another beautiful day. This is a stage for us to have an opportunity to share ourselves. Everybody has a unique gift, a unique passion, a unique genius that that can contribute to everybody. And I feel when we all go through our own journey, we find what that is. And some of us still don't know what that is, but we want to invite anybody who's willing to share and to face their fears, to share themselves. It contributes more than you even might think. You're sharing and being vulnerable is what allows me to share and to me to open up and be vulnerable. So I just want to thank all our speakers who are about to share with us today. And I encourage everybody who's interested in sharing, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you about it. And this is a platform for you to be you, and for us to celebrate that and what we all have in common as humans. But first and foremost, well, on that note, we're gonna introduce Sherry Winn.
Sherry, welcome to the stage.
Thank you.
Hi, Sherry.
Thanks, guys. Really
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
so much. Really appreciate you joining us.
I feel honored to be a part and just to share stories and to let people know that, life is full of challenges, and that's part of the experience of life. And I think our greatest lie that we've ever been told is that, life is supposed to be fair, or life is supposed to be like this one, trajectory that just climbs upward, and it's just not that way. And the most important thing is to remember that we were born worthy. And sometimes we forget that. I think that's the first thing we forget when we start growing up, is we were born worthy, and we don't have to do anything to be worthy. We're just there. And I think that's the biggest thing to note. But, my story is, too many parts of it. A lot of people will say, oh, what do you know about challenges? You're a 2-time Olympian. You're a national championship basketball coach. Like, it should have been easy. Life was easy for you. You just got this stuff. I think that's a bad lie, to assume that anybody else's success just came easy to them. And I don't mean like I could tell you about the number of miles I ran, the push-ups I did, blah, blah, blah. That's not the story. The story is really about recovering from the tailspin that I was in, from recovering from the places of depression that I went to, recovering from, having a gun underneath my chin, ready to blow my brains out. And people say, how did you ever get there? And I think it's so easy for people to get there because we're not ready. We're just not ready. So few people get the tools when you get into life to traverse this life easily. And, I was a talented athlete from the get-go. That was something that did come naturally to me. But what I grew up believing was that I was unlovable. And there may be some of you that are out there that feel the same way, that you're unlovable. And it wasn't really, it started at a young age because my mom used to sing this song to me. This is a crazy song. Maybe your mom sang it to you. I call it the worm song. I don't even know the right title to it, but it's like, nobody likes you. Everybody hates you. You need to eat some worms, right? Nobody likes you. Listen to the words. Nobody likes you. Everybody hates you. You need to eat some worms. Well, my mom didn't sing this song to me to be mean. She didn't have the intention of that. There was no intention in that. But what I heard was that nobody liked me. And so as I grew up and started playing sports, I was really good at just a natural athlete. And as I joined teams, I would think that they didn't like me. And because I thought they didn't like me, I acted like they didn't like me. And so there'd be a separation between me and other people. And they thought I was stuck up. And I wasn't stuck up. I thought I was better than them. And what I thought was I'm not good enough for them. And this started my like unlovable piece. It can be such a small piece of your life that starts that way, right? It's so small. And then the more you tell the story, the bigger the story becomes, and it just almost grows on its own. So, as I grew up and I experienced things where teammates did horrendous things to me. I mean, and I don't blame them. I mean, I did then, but I can remember going on a bus and nobody wanted to sit next to me, or going into restaurants and people would fight so that they could sit in a different chair for me. And feeling incredibly alone, feeling incredibly unloved. And, that was kind of the start of it. And when I got to high school, and my mom was my softball coach, she was a good coach, but she was going through a crisis of her own, which when you're 16, you have no idea that somebody else can go through a crisis beyond you. But my mother, at age 40, started dating one of my teammates who was 17. And I didn't know what was going on. I only knew that she took this other kid, and I thought that this other young lady was better than me, because my mom all of a sudden wanted to be near her, and took time to talk to her differently than she talked to me, and took time to take her out to dinner, take her to the movies. And so all of a sudden I started telling myself the story that I was so unlovable that even my mother couldn't love me. And that wasn't true, but it was a story that I had been telling myself for so long. It felt natural to tap into that. And it wasn't even really my crisis. And this is the interesting thing to note for those of you who are watching. It wasn't my crisis, it was my mom's, right? She was going, imagine a 40-year-old woman discovering that she's a lesbian, um, and then dating a 17-year-old. Can you imagine the horrific things that she felt and what she was going through? But I didn't know that, because it was all about me, right? And this is what we do in our life. We think things are all about us. We have no awareness that it's about the people around us too. It just becomes about us. So my interpretation was I was unlovable, and I was so unlovable that not even my mother could love me. And of course, I didn't voice this to anybody. I didn't tell anybody else. It was just my pain, my suffering that I put myself through. So, it's so easy to turn to when you don't have a tool to deal with life. It's so easy to turn to something else, to turn to drinking, which I did pretty heavily when I went to college. First, I was happy to get away from home. Nobody was talking about the elephant in the room. Nobody was discussing it. I didn't know what was going on. My father was, he didn't know how to handle it either. And only now can I appreciate the pain that he went through, because I can see it from his perspective now. Like I can see it from my mom's perspective now, but at the time there's nobody's perspective but mine. Nobody's suffering but mine, and nobody's interpretation but mine. And the pain that I felt, the aloneness, the separation, the belief that there was nobody who could ever love me. So when I got to college and got away from that and not having the tools to deal with anything, the first thing I did is start drinking, right? Because when I drank, I could forget. When I drank, I was okay. And when I drank, I could feel sexy, or I could feel funny, or I could feel likable. I could feel lovable. All those things that I told myself, because when you feel at your core that nobody can love you, when you feel that depth of that, it's so hard, and you don't know, you don't have a. I had no faith because I was born in uh, the South, where the Bible Belt, and I thought, how could God love me, right? Since God did this to me, and I was blaming God, and I blamed everybody else. So I had no faith in anything higher. I had no faith in my family. I had zero faith in teammates who were supposed to be there for me and who had abandoned me. And as I went to college and drank, of course, surprise, I was on the court. um, I was a troublemaker all of a sudden. I was really I was screaming for help, and nobody knew I was screaming for help because I wasn't voicing that. I was just doing it by drowning myself in booze, you know. The coach at the time didn't know how to deal with me, and it's not her fault. She didn't have a clue. I didn't know how to deal with me, and I wasn't telling anybody what was happening. So when I quit school and I went to a different school the next year because I thought, this is great. I thought if I ran away from that place that I would leave my problems behind, and I had no idea that all I did was take them with me, because you can't run away from yourself. And so when I went to Texas A&M, I spent the entire summer working out, losing the weight I'd gained from all the booze, getting in the gym, spending hours getting back in shape, getting my confidence back. And I go back to A&M, and I'm the leading scorer on the team, 70 points a game, leading the team in points and assists. And yet my teammates hated me again. And it's not their fault. When you hate yourself so much that you can't stand yourself, how could anybody else love you? Right? How can anybody else love you when you hate yourself so much you want them to love you? They can't. You make it impossible. It's exactly what I did. I made it made it impossible for anybody to love me because I didn't love me. I thought I was unlovable. And I remember finally it came to a head where the team didn't like me, obviously, and so they wanted the coach to cut me. And the coach brought me in, and she basically threw me to the wolves. And it's again, I really don't blame her now, as she didn't know better, but she put me in a room with the team and said to everybody, well, tell Sherry what you think about her. And it was really license to crucify me, basically. And they did. Man, wow. Walking out, listening to all the things they said, and I couldn't even defend myself, because how can you defend words that you believe are true when people tell you that you're unlovable and you believe it to the core that you are? And when I left that room, I quit. I never quit anything in my life in terms of just in the middle of a season. I just quit. And then I drank straight for 2 weeks. Like I didn't even get sober. I'd wake up and from passing out, and I'd just start drinking again. And it was just a dark time, right? I mean, how do you get out of that when at the core of you don't believe anything? But here's the great thing about this is that a year later, unbelievably, I was training for the Olympics on the U.S. national team. And you might be wondering, how the world did you get from this darkness to this new light? And what I can tell you is, it wasn't a single step. It wasn't a single thing. It was the willingness to start to believe a couple things. And one was that I'm lovable. Where did that come from? Well, meeting people, talking to people, being around people. I just, it's not a single step. It's many steps. It's reading. Books became my ally. Journaling became an ally. And there's always hope. I just want you to know that wherever you are, whatever you're experiencing, that there are always hope. And I want you to feel that and to know that and to embrace that. No matter where you are, no matter what story you've told yourself from this point, there's always another story. And sometimes you're telling yourself a story that's not even yours to be telling. Sometimes it's all a lie. Like the whole thing that I was unlovable was a lie. And so if you can step into a different space, if you'll just start doing something different today than you did yesterday, if you can start reading something positive or writing in a journal or even asking for support, going to somebody and telling them your story, just sharing it, things can change for you. So I'm hoping that you're here. If I can share anything with you, if you heard something today that helps you know that there is hope, you can find me at Sherry@thewinningleadershipcompany.com. I'm always here to show support and to help and to share with other people. So if I can do that for you, please, please, please know that I'm here for you. And I think that's my time. So I don't want to steal from other people on the show. So thank you for being present, for listening, and for knowing that you were born worthy. And sometimes you just forget that pathway. If you'll stay around long enough, you'll find it. So much love to all of you who are watching. And I think they're going to click me back in to the main thing here.
We are.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Sherry. It was really inspirational. I'm curious. So, at what point, where would you say the turning point was with your mindset to seeing? Because I relate that most of my life I've had that small child voice saying I'm not worthy, I'm not enough. People don't like me. If I do this, someone won't like me, and just petrified or paralyzed by my own fear about what other people thought about me or if I would be accepted.
You know, the best thing I did, and I didn't even know at the time that I don't know how this came to me. I mean, now I'd say it's probably divine intervention, but I started journaling and every day and really just writing what I thought was truth and who I was and the way I was behaving. And the second thing I did was start reading books. I became an avid reader. So those two things really started me on the path to being somebody different. And then because when I joined the USA national team, I had wonderful, wonderful teammates who were great mentors to me. Man, they loved me. They loved me unconditionally. They were willing to share with me and to talk to me. And without those people who I still love today, I don't think I would have made it. So those are the big pivoting points. And like I said, probably divine intervention of why journaling, I have no idea, but it was really the difference maker in my life. Thanks for asking, Abram. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Actually, can I ask a follow-up to that? I'd like to dig a little bit deeper, if that's okay.
Sure, Matthew.
Because I share that experience of having these lies that I kind of started accepting as a kid and didn't even realize that I was telling myself these stories. And what I was telling myself unconsciously was manifesting in my life. Like I was actually bringing that into my life. And there are a few aha moments where I have been either writing or working with someone, and that one specific belief all of a sudden is illuminated. And that lie that you talk about, that I'm unlovable, was there an aha moment like that for you? And if so, would you mind sharing how you got there?
Well, so I think there's an aha moment, but I'm a slow learner. So let's just get that really clear. I'm a very slow learner. So it wasn't like, it was, a long pathway of, through the next big challenge in my life was chronic pain. And it was a really long pathway when I developed chronic pain at the age of 35. When I went to 17 different medical professionals and nobody could help me. And I turned to this therapy, and it dealt with the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, right? And they kept saying to me things like, let's talk about, how do you feel about? And I'm like, this is BS, because it's my body, it's my physical body. It has nothing to do with all this other stuff you're talking about. But it's really that continual therapy where coming to connection with the total body, mind, body, spirit, and the consistency of those loving therapists who helped me see that I was love and I came from love and I'll always be loved. So it was a process, and I wish I could tell you it was like a moment, But for me, I'm a little bit hard-headed. So it was a process.
That's part of what I love about the show and about having people like you on is even though the stories themselves can seem universal, like we all seem to go through some version of this, every single person's is unique. And that unique perspective can be the key that unlocks someone else from their tragedy.
Absolutely.
So thank you. And that just real quick, that point you made about not the emotions being BS, like I feel like that's a really big point, and one that I just like to call attention to, that emotions do seem to be stored in the body, at least in my experience. And when I'm working with other people directly with through massage or whatever, like a lot of it is actually finding the places in the body where the emotion is stored and just bringing it up and reliving it and letting the memory go and letting the energy go. So thank you for bringing that part up.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I stored a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Until my body said, enough. No more.
Right. Right.
Thank you. You guys are beautiful. Thank you for being who you are and for sharing this wonderful stage. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. You've inspired me. You've made an impact, and we even have people on Facebook who thanking you for sharing. So you're just your courage in sharing your story with us and with the world is, it helps us all. So thank you for being who you are, and acknowledge you for just being a force for love and for compassion, and just for standing up for people for who we all really are. So
yeah, that's right. You're welcome.
Thank you, Sherry.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you again, Sherry. We got 2 more shares. I just wanted to again invite and encourage you, if you would like to be on the stage, if you would like to share, please go to our website. You'll have an opportunity to sign up there. You can contribute just who you are, just share who you are, whether it's a poem, a song, something that you've come across in your journey and your experience that maybe impacted or changed your whole life. Share your story with us. It contributes to us all. You're welcome to join us on the stage here, or if you'd like to be involved in the inner workings of the One Day movement and supporting us and just building our efforts and our movement, you have an opportunity to volunteer. And also, of course, you have an opportunity to make a financial contribution. Even if you have just a couple bucks, it goes a long way. But thank you again for sharing, Sherry. Up next, we have Josh Tan, who's going to share with us. How's it going,
Hey,
Josh? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me, Matthew and Abram, and thank you, Sherry, for that beautiful share.
Absolutely. We appreciate you. Looking forward to your share. And without further ado, it's just the stage is yours, Josh.
Thank you very much. My name is Josh Tan. I'm an intuitive life coach, and my share and my story is a story of moving from being trapped to being free. And I hope you enjoy it. Much like most of us, I grew up thinking that there was only a few paths to life, and that there was a right way and a wrong way to do things. And I grew up in a very loving household, very supportive household. And overall, I trapped myself. I grew up thinking like you had to do certain things and there was a right way and a wrong way. So the right way was go to school, get a degree, get all that stuff, make money, get promotions. And that was the way to live life. And as I got, I did really well for myself, and I got into that lifestyle and I was happy. But the more I got, the more I would just notice my happiness was only in these fleeting moments. It was not really a permanent feature of my life. And I was just kind of confused, like, I did everything right. Why does it feel so wrong? So because of this like right-wrong dynamic, I started to practice escapism and get into drinking and partying and like unhealthy behavior. So I would have these two different modes of operating. I'd be like the good engineer at work, with all the numbers, all the data, and I'd be this like super wild fireball on the weekends. And I thought that those things had to be separate. And the checking out and the career, they continued to progress side by side. So like as my career got better, my checking out, my escapism got more extreme. And I just knew that I just had this feeling like this is not the way it's supposed to be. And I kept them separate. I had my career in one box and my hobbies and my partying in another box. And I knew it was really unhealthy. So I thought I could pull it off. So I just kept it in those two different spaces. And it got worse and it got worse. And I decided like, well, I really need to, fix myself. So I started studying this like self-help and all these like be more productive and be a happier person. And I decided like, oh, I'm not setting my goals properly. I'm not setting what I want properly. So I decided I wanted to change careers. Now, this is a really dangerous place to be because I put my happiness in the future with my career. My happiness and my freedom were now in the future. So I was here doing my job, and I'd only be happy when or if I got this thing. So it was even further, my happiness and my freedom were further out of my control. And that just perpetuated the cycle more and more. So after a few years of doing that, I decided I need to quiet the mind. Like, obviously, my mind is what's wrong with me. I have to be able to learn like meditation and become really zen. And if I can just quiet the mind, that'll be the key that I need to my own freedom. So I started practicing meditation, and I started looking into metaphysics and having like out-of-body experiences and things like that. And that was helpful, but again, it was like that's not really what it is. It's like, so now I have this engineering box, this party box, and this meditation box, because I grew up in a very traditional household. So like the meditation was kind of like, eh. So now I have these different boxes, and like my party people didn't know my meditation people because they wouldn't get along. And my meditation people wouldn't know my work people because engineers don't meditate. And I was just fragmenting everywhere. And I thought that by keeping these areas of my life separate, I was actually keeping these areas of my life preserved, like, oh, I have so many things going on. I've got so much going on. This is so great. I want this like big, expansive life. But really, they just keep you in these small miniature lives. So meditation had helped for a couple of years, and I still like wasn't happy. I wasn't released. I wasn't free. I wasn't fulfilled. And this cycle is repeating, and I'm getting worse. I'm getting more extreme. My escapism is getting more extreme. I'm drinking more. I'm trying like new substances. I'm hanging out with like different people. And on top of that, I started dating both men and women. So now I have this new box of sexuality that's separate from everything. And it's just like a mess. And it came down to a point in my life where I was wearing so many masks that I like couldn't really remember myself. And because I was flipping these masks all the time and exhausting myself, I was actually hurting all the people around me. I was getting into unhealthy relationships. I was being a total jerk at work. I was hurting my family. And all this hurt eventually came to a tipping point where I actually lost everything. I ended up losing my job, losing friends, hurting a bunch of friends, finding myself totally alone, totally isolated. And I knew from all my studies in spirituality that everything was my own fault. It was all me at the end of the day. So I had to take a really hard look at myself and really go into my own shadow and look at all the fears I had, all the fears of getting things wrong, getting stuck in that right way and wrong way to do life, and realizing that there is no right or wrong way to do life. There's only life. So I really had to take that on and give myself the permission to be wrong. I was stuck in the trap of being smart and, having to get everything right and having to look good on paper and having to please everyone around me, that I couldn't be myself all the time. So I really had to come clear on getting things right and wrong. After I gave myself permission to kind of like be wrong, after that came the permission to be myself, to just be myself in all situations, all circumstances, say what I want to say, do what I want to do, be with the people I want to be with, pursue the interests that I like. So with being myself, I saw that all these separate fragmented pieces of me were not giving me this full expansive life. They were actually just separating me from everyone. So I decided to just combine all my identities into one, tell everyone in my life all the same thing, and tell one story. And that's actually a really amazing point, because when I had one story, my life actually got bigger. I actually had more friends, more time, more things to do, more success. It actually got bigger once I combined my life into one story. And and then I really had to come clean with where I was hurting people and my intentions and my actions that were really not the right way to do things. I had this, spiritual background and studying meditation and like believing that and talking the talk, but not walking the walk. So that's another part. When you combine all aspects of yourself into one, you get the best of everything all in one. And the best of everything, it helps the worst of everything. So now that I have just one story, I have I get to do all the things I want to do. I get to go out and adventure, and there's nothing. I'm not hurting anyone. I don't have to tell a different story. I don't have to hide what I'm doing from anyone. And it's a really relieving feeling to just be able to accept yourself. Really, that's what it is, accepting yourself for who you are and knowing that there is no right or wrong. There is only life, and there's not just one path. You might have been told that there's one path or that you should do things, but in reality, there's an infinite number of paths. And the path that's truest to you is yours. And if you look back, when I look back at my life and I look at all the clues I left for myself of all the things I like to do, and I left them all in different boxes, it's like, oh, all those clues are there the whole time. Just listen to what lights you up in your mind, your heart, and your gut. Like, what lights you up? What gives you that feeling of energy? So really, you had to give yourself the permission to be free, the permission to not listen to what doesn't light you up, those stories you've been told, those stories that you've bought into, and listen to that deep inner knowing inside, and listen to that for what you should be doing, where you should be going. Some might call it intuition, some might call it spirit, energy, source. And once you connect to that, your life can be a lot bigger. There's a lot to do there for accepting yourself, allowing yourself, granting yourself forgiveness for where you've hurt people, where you've hurt yourself. It's all there. And your story is great. Your story is amazing. It's only one of a kind. So honor your story, honor where you've come from and where you want to go. So my name is Josh Tan. I'm an intuitive coach. If this story resonates with you, I can help you free yourself, reconnect your intuition, your connection to source, heal from those limiting stories and those negative emotions. So thank you. And that's my time for questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Josh, your story. And, just sounds like you've gone through quite a transformation, you know, from being in a point where you had like I feel like we've all been in a point, but like we're wearing masks. Our stories that we carry are like a lens that we view the world, and we're limited because we can't even be who we are. Like, and it's amazing that on the other side of that, you've found a way to empower others to do the same, and you know, and while having your own full self-expression, and you know, not holding back who you are, and that's an amazing feat. So I acknowledge you for being able to just come through the other side. So it sounds like there was a period where you were kind of looking for tools, like using meditation. And is there something that triggered that? Like, was there something that started the opening for you to break through to that other side?
The search for transformation is like that feeling of unfulfillment. So you go and you look for like what is going to fill that gap. And for anyone listening, if you're looking to fill that gap, the first question you should ask yourself is why am I doing this for me? Because if you're just trying to fill that gap for any other reason, then it's not gonna work for you. So like meditation, when I was in meditation, I was trying to fill the gap of like, my mind is racing and I'm told it shouldn't be racing. It's kind of like a dissonance, you know?
Totally.
Yeah, I get that. And also along with that, why is also what is it that I'm like, what am I feeling? What am I running from? What am I running towards? What am I, you know, trying to get? There was actually, you brought up something, you know, intuition at the very end of it. And often when I start sharing about intuition with people, the very next question is, well, how do I feel that? And it's funny that most people seem to go to that, when to me, the real question is, what does it actually feel like? And so I'm curious, like, what does your intuition feel like to you? Like, what is your experience of it?
So there's, you can feel it in multiple different ways. Also when you're sleeping, but when you're awake, you can feel it in your heart and in your gut, also in your mind. The mind is the most trickiest because the ego is there and it's going to try to trick you. But you want to feel this like sense of connection, this sense of bliss that's kind of like in the heart.
Well,
you know?
But for you exactly, like, what does it feel like to you?
For me, I can get to the 3 levels. And for in the mind, it's actually like a very clear voice. It's no longer chatter. And in the heart, it's this feeling of like this deep sense of gratitude, and that the universe and the world is working for me instead of to me or against me. I'm in flow with it.
Yeah, that feels like, for me, the way it started was with being able to feel my breath. So if like I was asking myself a question and the answer was no, my breath would get constricted. I would feel tightness in my chest. And the opposite was, if the answer was yes, it felt expansive, and all of a sudden I could breathe deep and full. And it's grown from there. But that was, you know, in the heart was where it started for me too. So yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that's really cool that, you know, you have those tools, you know, that you can I feel like there's different cultural contexts and different tools we all have access to. We learn through our own journey, but I think it's taking that inventory of what's going on inside us. You know, it's like being aware. It's like when we have fears, seeing them as fears, like, oh, well, I'm afraid of that. Why do I feel that way? Like, why? It's like at first it feels like we're playing catch up. You know, like we see ourselves acting out despite, you know, all the things going on inside us. And eventually I feel like taking responsibility for the things we experience in our own body, and having the desire to take responsibility and to find the source. And I feel like that's ultimately, you know, that's the key to, I feel like, any transformation, is when we know we want to find that, we want to find the source of all of that within us. And I think it's awesome that you have those tools and you're willing to share them with all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Appreciate you guys. And if you do find the joy or the fear, just look at what it's trying to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Just ask why. What is this fear for? What is this joy for? What caused it?
Right.
Yeah.
There's a saying I heard that said, fear knocked on the door and love answered, and then no one was there. And the point of that saying was, those can't coexist. You can't be in both a fear mindset or in a, you have to be, you can only stand in one of those places, in love or in fear. It's like, and I think that aligns with what you're just saying.
Definitely.
Yeah. And the funny thing about that is it can flip back and forth multiple times.
Right. It's a dance. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a total dance.
Yeah, it's never ending. Well, I really appreciate, again, you sharing, Josh. Thank you for being with us, and we hope you'll come back to share some more again.
Would love to. Thank you, guys.
Right,
awesome.
next time,
Thank
Josh.
you, Josh. And thank you all again for hanging out with us. Just be in the space and the listening for all of us to share. This is not possible without you guys. We invite you and encourage you to share on the stage with us. You can go to our website and find out more info. You're like, what is One Day? What is this movement? Go to the website. You can kind of get all the info you'd like, but we'd love to hear from you. It's amazing and awesome that you're all are just watching and, being so supportive. But if you'd like to share, we encourage you, even if you don't even know what you want to share, we'd love to talk to you about it. Everybody who's done this so far has been so happy that they have. And I mean, just me sharing on the first episode, it opened up doors and opened up things I didn't even know. And I encourage you, especially if you're afraid to share, but you feel an intuition that you might want to, I encourage you to follow that intuition, because there's something that you will gain that you don't even expect. And I can't say that enough, but we have an open invitation for all of you. No matter who you are, we want to hear what you have to offer and what you have to share with us, because you make us stronger. But you have something to add to that, Matthew?
Yeah, absolutely. Like just that letting fear guide. Like, whenever I feel like I'm scared to do something, often that's a sign to me that there's real transformation in that for me. And it's to jump into that fear, to embrace it and enjoy the feeling of it and do it anyways. So
right.
if any of you are scared to share, especially come and talk to us. We would love to have you on.
The most beautiful things in life are on the other side of our fears.
Yes.
When we can transcend our fear, turn it into love. You don't even know what's possible until you try. And that's the thing about it. It's like, it's going to be fear until you face it. It's never going to go anywhere until you actually acknowledge it for what it is. But what's on the other side is the most beautiful thing. And you can't even know what that will be until you experience it. So please feel free. If you have any questions, reach out to us, and we'd love for you to share. So we have one more guest. We're excited to hear her share. Jennisue Jessen. Hello, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
Hi, guys. I'm glad to be here today.
We're glad to have you.
We're so happy to have you. And without further ado, Jennisue, the stage is yours.
Yeah, what an honor and privilege to join you guys this afternoon, and a really distinct and curious privilege to be the third contributor in this forum, because I love how the stories weave together with a common theme of identity and the lies we believe and how we move forward with purpose and impact, and specifically how those lies we believe impact how we relate to other people and how we view ourselves. So I'm really excited to be here in this forum and discuss some of that. My perspective is one that will be unique to some people and not at all unique to others. And that is that I come from a background of profound and significant trauma. And I learned the worst of what relationships are, the most corrupt of relationships, because my grandfather, who should have been a good guy, should have been a hero, so to speak, a pleasure to be with, instead was a bad guy. And so he started trading me to other men for sex when I was 4 years old. And so on a summer day that should have been just like any other for a 4-year-old, filled with delight and curiosity and wonder, my life turned upside down and inside out. And like I said, I learned the devastating side of corrupt relationship. And so part of what I wanted to share today is how that can be turned right side up again. Because I think we're created for relationship. And when someone is devastated by assault, and even specifically sexual assault, it is a very intimate violation. It goes to the very core of who we are. And it changes the way we view the world, the way we view mankind, and certainly the way we view ourselves. But just as touch was this worst violation, touch and relationship is also where restoration and healing happens. So for me, I had 13 years of pretty unspeakable trauma, and we don't need to go into the blood and guts of that. It wouldn't benefit you or me, either one. But the remarkable thing is that God stepped in when I was 17 and provided for my rescue and escape. And that started a journey of recovery that has been a lifelong recovery. And one of the most pivotal things that I have learned is the importance of meaningful and trustworthy relationships, because we are created, I believe, in the image of God for relationship. We're created for meaningful, intimate, life-changing relationships. And to have a meaningful relationship, we have to have some boundaries. So one of the first skills for having a healthy relationship is the capacity to have autonomy, but also enter into community. So we heard Josh share a little bit, this really brave and courageous discussion about how he had to look at how he had wounded other people. And that's a hard thing to do for any of us, to admit, to recognize, wait, I messed up. I caused this pain for this other person. So healthy relationship means that I have autonomy. I'm not going to lose myself. I know who I am and where I stand, but also I can enter into healthy community. So we have the capacity to be emotionally close with other people while not losing our sense of self, that I am not defined by what my teammates are whispering behind my back or maybe are confronting me with. Sherry, that was brutal when the coach called you in and your teammates shared their thoughts or their feelings. The capacity to enter into healthy relationship means we can both be autonomous and in community, not defined by somebody else, but knowing who we are. And then the second skill of important or meaningful relationships, is the capacity to both give and to receive care. And for a lot of us, giving care comes naturally. It's easy. It's easy to look out for the other person. For people who are mothers, you're just taking care of somebody else all the time. The unhealthy version of that would be a codependent relationship where I become a doormat and I sacrifice myself all the time to meet the needs of the other person. And that's not autonomy, because that's sacrificing myself, right? But the capacity to give care and equally the capacity to receive care. And so for people that have been victimized or found parents or grandparents or coaches or friends to be untrustworthy, receiving care feels really, really dangerous. We come to this conclusion that I'm better off on my own. I've got to figure it out all by myself. And we kind of write ourselves into the script as the hero of our own story. Like, you can't tell me anything. I've been there. I've done that. I have this experience. And in both of these places, either as the doormat or the hero, we're actually separating ourselves from community. We're setting ourselves apart from meaningful relationship. We're putting up these walls or these barriers, when really the healthiest relationship is based on equality. I have value, you have value. Together we have equal value. I have a purpose, you have a purpose. Together and separately, we have an equal, important purpose. Now, again, I believe our purpose and our value being equal comes because we're made in the image of God. And then the third skill for a meaningful relationship comes from our capacity to negotiate needs. That means to negotiate to have my needs met means, first of all, I have to know what my needs are. I have to know where the hurt is, where the hunger is, where the desire is. I have to be able to define that. And then I have to be able to express what the answer is to that. Like, what do I need you to give me? After a long day, if I have been dealing with problem solving all day, I might be a little bit stressed. And my husband and I sit down to dinner and I start telling him about my day. And we have figured out this strategy. So now he will ask me, do you want my opinion? Do you want some help problem solving? Or do you just need to be heard? And I think that is one of the most foundational things to having a meaningful relationship, is to be able to know what I need and ask for what I need. Sometimes I want his help with problem solving. Sometimes I just want to be heard. It has been said that being heard and being loved, we interpret those, they fire off in the brain both as love. Like, I can't separate the difference between being heard and being loved. If I'm heard, I feel loved. If I'm loved, I feel heard. And so to be able to know what our needs are and negotiate to have those met is a really pivotal piece. I love this quote. There's a poet named Rainer Maria Rilke, and she wrote this poem, and she says, "The love that consists in this, that two solitudes protect and border and salute each other. A love like this makes the soul feel safe for two reasons. First, because it excludes the violence we do to each other in love's name. And I don't mean overt physical violence of an abusive relationship or like the violence I endured as a child, but I mean this like subtle undercurrent of violence that we do to one another when we violate the other person's solitude with the intention of being helpful. There's a lot of times that we move forward to help someone, to rescue someone. Maybe we're the hero in the story, right? And in doing so, we actually do more damage than good. So there's this fable, there's this story that I love in a book called Zorba the Greek. And this fable goes like this, of this guy, he's walking in the forest one morning and he discovers a cocoon in the bark of a tree. And it catches his eye because it's just trembling in the corner there. And so he stops and he looks more closely and he sees that a butterfly is just making a hole in the case, almost ready, preparing to come out. And so he waited. He waited a while, and there's this trembling and this moving, but the hole's not getting much bigger. And so he grew impatient because it was too long in appearing. And so he bent over near the hole in the tree and he breathed warm onto it. And it warmed quickly. And as quickly as it warmed, transformation started happening right before his very eyes. And it excited him faster than life. He breathed warm onto this trembling cocoon. And as he breathed on it, the case opened and the butterfly started crawling out. And in the story, he put his hand forward and this crumpled butterfly crawled into his hands. And he was horrified to see the wings folded back and crumpled, while this poor little butterfly, wretched butterfly, tried with its whole body to unfold its wings. So bending over once again, he breathed, but in vain. And the butterfly died in his hands. It needed to be hatched out patiently. And the unfolding of the wings should have been a gradual process in the sun, but now it was too late. And the guy in this story says that this butterfly struggling desperately for life and dying in his hand is the greatest weight he has on his conscience, because he realized that it is a mortal sin to violate the great law of nature. We can't hurry, we can't be impatient, but we have to confidently obey the rhythm of life. Now, there are rare occasions that we need to breathe someone into life who is incapacitated in a way that threatens their very well-being. They may be on the verge of suicide or in the depths of addiction. Their wound may literally be a threat to their life. But most people, and most of the time, we have to come to life in our own way and time. And if we try to help other people, force the process, force the addict into treatment, or force our agenda, we end up doing more harm than good. So in healthy relationships, two solitudes, two people with autonomy are able to protect and border and salute one another. And then we have freedom to live our own lives by the great laws of nature and learn how to live them more deeply, more intimately. And there's a sharper way to put this point, and that's that a love that respects the other person's solitude actually offers a hedge of protection against amateur psychotherapy, which is an abomination and has done catastrophic damage. In an age where therapy is practiced without credentials, competence, or invitation, the idea or the image of two solitudes equals, autonomous, protecting and bordering and saluting each other helps us from falling into this common form of interpersonal violence. And it helps us, it empowers us to enter into relationships from a place of equality that honors the other person, so that both you and the other person can move forward in community with autonomy towards lives of freedom and purpose and impact. So I'm Jennisue, and that's all I've got for today.
Wow, thank you so much, Jennisue, thank you for sharing your story and being willing to just share what you've been through. It's so powerful to hear you share and just be so empowered. It's very inspiring. And thank you for that share. It really is inspiring.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, there's something I've been noticing happening. I know a lot of women who have been through similar traumas, and they're all starting to find their voice. And I feel like there's this fundamental shift that seems to be happening where women are finally starting to come back into balance and to speak up and hold their own, hold that solitude and that that self-love so strongly. And I really appreciate being able to offer this platform to women like that, women like you, who are willing to get out there and share and be vulnerable. And there's just so much to learn and so much to unpack there. I really wish I could ask you a lot more questions than we really have time for right now. But I guess the big one is, was there a moment when you were growing up that you realized how, like, before you turned 17, while you were still stuck in this cycle of violence, was there a moment where you kind of started questioning or realizing that, wait a minute, there's something that just doesn't feel right? Or was it just like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand your question. I mean, I knew everything in my life was upside down, inside out, wrong. In kindergarten, I started praying every night that God would just let me die, that he wouldn't make me wake up in the morning. And so I knew that there had to be more. I longed for freedom, and I longed for safety. And again, that goes back to my core belief that there is a most high God in whose image we're made. And so that longing for freedom, that nearness of God, you know, for those that believe in the Bible, and I won't get preachy, but God reveals himself, his name, as I am. And whatever you're talking about in your daily life, like I came in on it, hi, I am Jennisue. We might say, I am hungry. I am tired. I am an atheist. I am. Every day, hundreds of times a day, we declare I am before we say whatever we are. I am hungry. I am tired. I am mad. I am. And the beauty of that is the nearness of God in whatever we're facing. We can't declare what we're facing without declaring his presence first. And I think that's a pivotal piece of healing and restoration, and what I longed for as a child and what I have found as an adult.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah.
What you were saying, I mean, so many things you said really resonated, but when you're talking about boundaries, that struck a chord with me, because for a long time in my life, I didn't even know I didn't even understand there was such a thing as boundaries. Like, I didn't even know what that meant. Like, I was, I say now I'm a recovered people pleaser, but I would be afraid to speak up for myself. I would try to make others happy, but not even realize or even ask myself what I needed to be enough. And what's interesting about boundaries in my journey is that, it's not we're not acting against another person. We're acting for ourselves. And when we do that, when we are able to have healthy boundaries for ourselves, we're able to show up more for other people. We're able to show up more for ourselves. So boundaries are so important. Just knowing what we need, and I feel like it's defining that. And it's not, it's for me, it was hard to do at first because I didn't want to hurt other people's feelings. I didn't want to, I wanted to, I was afraid that my boundaries would be, rejected, and like, oh, I don't like, back to that fear of not being enough. And ultimately we're inherently enough, but I discovered, but also having boundaries allows me to contribute to other people, because if you let people walk all over me, or if I just didn't really have boundaries within, or just with relationships in my life, I wouldn't be able to be who I fully am. So it's ultimately, our boundaries are what make us stronger and allows us to show up stronger for our friends and our relationships.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Abram. That's part of the reason I love that phrase of two solitudes, protecting, bordering, and saluting each other. That we maintain our own identity. We know who we are and whose we are. And in that security, then we can honor the other person's boundaries. We can honor each other from a place of equality and intimacy and relationship.
Absolutely. There was well, it's from a book I was reading, and it was a prayer from a book I was reading. And no matter what your faith is or what you believe, I feel this prayer I found to be very powerful, universally speaking. And I'll share it with you. It's by Brother Dave, who wrote this prayer. But may you recognize in your life the presence, power, and light of your soul. May you realize that you are never alone, that your soul in its brightness and belonging connects you intimately with the rhythm of the universe. May you have respect for your individuality and difference. May you realize that the shape of your soul is unique and that you have a special destiny here. That behind the facade of your life, there is something beautiful and eternal happening. May you learn to see yourself with the same delight, pride, and expectation with which God sees you in every moment. And that kind of came, I was reminded of that poem as you were sharing. So I wanted to share that.
Amen.
Well, thank you so much. You're so, I really acknowledge how much strength you have, just not only to face what you faced, but to come around and share this with us and share this with our audience to, empower us all. And it's such a beautiful thing, and I'm always inspired by human stories of diamonds and pearls, under pressure, the most beautiful things, the capability of what humans are, what's possible with humans when we're under pressure and what we do to break through that, and how beauty will shine through, just magnified a million times. And I really acknowledge you, because I really see you as just a shining light for what you've been through, and how you're sharing it with us is really, really powerful and impactful. And I'm very grateful that you shared your story with us.
Oh, thanks so much. I loved sharing the afternoon with you guys, and it was an honor to share your platform this afternoon.
Cool. Yeah, I feel like you're just a wonderful example of how all things can work towards good for those who love. And even the most insanely, disastrously, hideously, preposterously violent things can work towards love if we let them.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, there is hope.
There is always hope.
There is always hope.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Jennisue, for sharing your story. Might as well bring Josh back in here too. Well, thank you, Josh and Sherry. She had to run, but thank you for sharing yourself with us and just inspiring us all to be stronger and to share ourselves. Because ultimately, when we share ourselves, everybody, we are all feel more willing to see that we're all human, that we all have an experience that helps lift other people up. And some people, we don't even see the effect. We can share our story and someone heard a few words that they hadn't thought of it that way, and then triggers a whole shift. And it's just like, the more we are willing to be vulnerable, to be our true selves, the more we reach people that that need to hear it. And your struggles and your stories is somebody else's solution as well. So I acknowledge you both. Thank you for sharing and just being part of the stage. And we hope you'll both come back and share with us some more in the future. But thank you so much. And also, I'll say thank you to all of our audience and for you all joining us. The One Day Movement, we are committed to standing for your belonging, for your, who you are, and our mission. What the One Day Movement stands for is bringing you and I and communities together in joyous celebration, unifying humanity in our diversity to create a better world for us all. And that's what we're doing, one story at a time, one episode at a time. Every day is one day. One day is today, and we're creating it now. And we are creating a new era in this new world, with this new experience of the world, where we all have something to contribute to all of us. And when we can see and connect the dots, focus on the humanity in all of us, we can lift each other up and do amazing things that we don't even know are possible yet. So thank you all for joining us. Please feel free to join us on this stage. Go to our website if you'd like to share. But thank you all again for joining us, and we'll see you next week on Tuesday. I love you all. Be well. Take care. Bye-bye. And we'll see you next time.